Molly.
I'm Larry.
And it's our anniversary. We've been married 28 years today.
28.
We are at Mount Magazine.
Yes, 28 years ago, we were headed to the reception hall to set up.
Well, he was. My mother had taken my veil apart. Long story, not getting into it. I had to remake a veil the day of my wedding, 28 years ago today. We just decided that we wanted to get away for the weekend, and I'm not totally sure how much hiking we're going to be able to do because I had my ankle surgery 7 weeks ago. Wow, I have a lot more cuts and scars than I expected. My ankle is still very much healing, but I am out of the cast and out of the boot and into this little raptor brace, which at least gives me some movement. Now I've had 1 week of physical therapy. I don't know how much hiking I can actually do. Still healing, I guess. I figure some movement is good. I do that in physical therapy, right?
Yeah. And there's a whole bunch of 1 to 5 mile hikes. We can take some short stuff and not be too far away. And
Mount Magazine, for those of you not from Arkansas, is the highest mountain in Arkansas.
Ooh, 2,753 feet.
So, it's kind of pathetic compared to some other states, but it's what we've got. And at least we have elevation. I'm from New Orleans, where it's totally flat and below sea level, so this seems really high in comparison.
And actually, this is a mountain. It's not like Clingman's Dome, where you're on the middle of the mountain and walking down the Appalachian Trail increases a little bit. This actually sticks out in the middle of a valley. There's a whole bunch of valleys around it, so if you wanted to, you could literally walk from the bottom. I suppose you could do that at Clingman's Dome too. But it's about 2,753 feet, so from the bottom you'd probably walk maybe 1,600 feet of elevation. So that, in Arkansas, that's a lot.
Yeah, that's what
finding
we have.
1,000-foot elevation climb is difficult, so
anyway, should be a fun weekend. Happy anniversary, my love. We started our morning a little while ago with a pre-dawn hike. Can't come to a mountain like this without wanting to see the sunrise. We just enjoyed 3/10 of a mile for a hike led by Don. It was one of their
Ranger Interpretive hikes.
It was very enjoyable. It took us 1 hour to do 3/10 of a mile. But it's funny because where I see just greenery and just enjoy the canopy, he sees individual plants and animals and the evidence of bears and so on and so forth. So I'll try to remember a little bit of what we did. I don't think it'll take me another hour to go by, but it was really quite fun. And here's evidence of bear activity. The log was there, and it's been moved. And you can see it's been dug into. Not only this log, but these logs over here. Basically, what the bears do is they can smell really, really well. So they know when there's grubs and snakes and critters that they'd like to eat that are underneath the logs. So they pick them up and move them and feast. This little flower, he gave me the name, but I forgot already, usually grows on the prairie, so I'm not quite sure how it managed to get here. So this plant is not poison ivy, although people mistake it for it. It's actually sumac. This is a bee balm, and that will eventually become a flower, and butterflies love it. Here is a wild blackberry bush. It doesn't have many berries on it because the bears like the berries, and the raccoons and the birds. And this little guy, didn't remember the name, but it's kind of cool because it's all prickly and it sticks like Velcro. And this is not marijuana, but it was mistaken for marijuana by some people. It actually is the ingredient they use to force people to vomit when they've swallowed a poison. So I think that's fitting for somebody who was thinking that they were getting some pot. These hickory nuts get shed by the trees when insects get in them. They all have this hole. You can see the hole right there. And it's probably a wasp that laid eggs in it. But when you find a hickory nut on the ground, because the tree knew that it would pick on bad, you find a hole where an animal will be eating on the inside eventually and come out. And the good hickory nuts you have to get off the tree in the fall. Here's the hickory tree. Or is that the hickory tree? I don't know. One of these is a hickory tree. Because there are hickory nuts all over the ground here. And when you get to ponds like this, you're going to also find frogs. Another piece of evidence. A black bear was here. The log has been moved. Mount Magazine is in Paris, Arkansas, and of course you can't go to Paris without taking time to see the Eiffel Tower. So here you go, folks. It's the Eiffel Tower. Okay, Signal Hill Trail to High Point. Here we go. Place of Interest 1.
People believe trees like this, growing at a weird angle, were signal trees, intentionally bent and then allowed to grow to mark a location to signify a trail or a certain place or spring or something.
This is a tiny little thing because High Point says it's 0.45 miles from here. And here's sign 3.
Trail crosses an old wagon road, which connected homesteads on the mountaintop towns and surrounding valleys during the late 1800s and early 1900s. Before the Great Depression, as many as 25 families lived on subsistence farming here. When they were able to produce more than they needed, they hitched oxen, mules, or wagons for a week-long trip to sell below. It would take, on a good day, 48 hours to get to Paris for a 2-3 day trip.
The city of Magazine was founded around 1900. Because there are beautiful views up here, it quickly became a popular tourist destination. Hotels were built and the railways helped foster tourism.
When the Great Depression came along, most of the lots were bought by the federal government to pay taxes, and so then the federal government owned the land.
Hence this ultimately becoming a state park, complete with a nice resort. Okay, sign in the register saying we made it to the top. The summit has no view because the highest point in Arkansas happens to be in the middle of a plateau. The awesome thing is that at the top, they put the survey marker in the proper place on a 400 square foot stone map of Arkansas, made to scale. 1 foot equals 13 miles.
Sap from the sugar maple tree was harvested by the settlers here to make syrup. 40 gallons of sugar maple sap are required to make 1 gallon of maple syrup. Notice the many holes in the bark of this tree. They were made by yellow-bellied sapsuckers, which are a type of woodpecker. Sap oozing from those holes attracts insects, which is what the sapsuckers are really after. So the sandstone layers allow water to disappear underground and reappear further downhill. This action filters water, making Mount Magazine the source for many clear-running streams. Gutter Rock Creek begins near here as a spring and tumbles its way to Paris Lake, the main water supply for that town. Here the creek is easy to step across and is often dry in summer months, but look closely for animal tracks in the mud. Here's a deer track.
Here's a track.
Yeah, that's probably a deer. Looks kind of like a cloven hoof. Look, it's a deer!
The verse of the day is Joshua 1:9. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be terrified. Do not be discouraged,
for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. Two things jump out to me. One, God is telling me not to be afraid. I've heard, but I don't know if it's true, that God tells us not to be afraid 365 times in the Bible, once for every single solitary day of the year. So we should know every day not to be afraid, but to just lean on Him. I do know that, although life throws obstacles and difficulties my way, I've also seen God provide over and over and over again. And that makes it much easier for me personally to not be afraid. Whether I've needed healing, money, employees, or customers, somehow it's always worked out. Maybe it doesn't look the way I want it to. If I had a choice, I wouldn't want either of my sons to have been born with cystic fibrosis. But in the larger picture, I know that God's got it. And that gives me peace.
Cystic fibrosis is a lung disease that makes it harder to breathe, and it messes with the digestive tract. Most people don't realize the life of people with CF. You look normal on the outside, but it's a constant battle on the inside. It's usually a battle between life and death. CF takes time out of your life and daily breathing treatments, and if that doesn't work, you're in the hospital. I swallow 36 pills every day, and even more when I'm sick, and I inhale 3 different medicines. I also take medicine mixed into drinks for my digestive tract. I do my therapy 2 to 4 times a day, and I swim to help my lungs. I work very hard to try to stay healthy. Every day I dream that there will be a cure for CF.
The other thing that jumped out to me is the command to be strong and courageous. Not only is it told in verse 9, but also in Joshua 1, verses 6, 7, and 8. In these verses, God tells Joshua that 1, He's with him and will use him to give the promised land to God's people. 2, that Joshua needs to follow God's law. And 3, that Joshua needs to meditate on God's word. I think these same things hold true for me and for you. If we learn God's message and follow His word, then God will use us to bless others, and there is no place for fear. And God's peace will fill us all. My wish for you is that you too will know God's joy and peace.
Pawpaw trees.
Oh yeah, we learned about this earlier today. There's a
They're tall,
pawpaw.
slender, with simple leaves. There's not going to be any fruit on it. Brown blossoms appear before spring leaves. They become greeny flesh fruits in September. Their flavor has been described as tangy banana and is eaten by forest residents. Caterpillars of the elegant zebra swallowtails feed only on pawpaw leaves. But, we found out, they don't make their chrysalis on the tree. They eat the leaves and then they go somewhere else. And sometimes bats can be seen roosting under the large leaves.
I don't see any.
This is the large concrete square pad that was one of 7 wells drilled in the 1940s to supply water to the original Mount Magazine Lodge. This well was 59 feet deep. It says, "What do you wonder as you stand here?"
So, what do you think of the self-guided tour?
Of the Signal Hill Trail.
The Signal Hill Trail self-guided tour.
Yeah, it's a nice little trail. Gave you a workout.
It was,
Found some interesting things.
it wasn't that hard on my ankle, but it definitely feels like I'm working it. It's kind of like when I did the physical therapy and have to roll the little thing that's on a ball, the little plate on the ball. I felt like I was rolling my ankle in different ways every time I stepped.
Don't worry, we have to go a little uphill, then downhill, then back to the lodge.
Sounds good. Tonight's food looks pretty delicious to me. Larry decided to wait on his entree. He's going to get that in a minute. But he also decided to get the dessert because
Dessert first.
why would you want an entree if you can have dessert? And here is the second part of Larry's meal. Ready to eat.
So, we enjoyed our anniversary.
Me too. And just think, I brought you to the Eiffel Tower in Paris and showed you the entire state of Arkansas all in one day.
Yes, you did. And maybe when my ankle is a bit better, you can bring me to the Eiffel Tower in Paris, France. And then we could hike Le Chemin de Ronde.
You want to walk all over who? What guy?
I don't know. I just Googled to try to find a picturesque hike in France. It's rated as difficult, so I think I need a bit more time for my ankle to heal.
Okay, so we'll throw that in the bucket list.
Sounds great. Happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary.